Patients are dying in hospital corridors and going undiscovered for hours, according to a shocking new survey of thousands of nurses. 90% of respondents say that safety is being compromised by conditions in NHS hospitals, and over two-thirds told the Royal College of Nursing they are delivering care in overcrowded or unsuitable places, which includes not just corridors, but even bathrooms, converted cupboards and car parks. The RCN union called for bold government action to end corridor care, which health organisations say has become a year-round scourge. So 518,000 patients waited at least 12 hours on trolleys last year. Yesterday, the Health Secretary Wes Streeting said this is unacceptable.
I want to be clear. I will never accept or tolerate patients being treated in corridors. It is unsafe, undignified, a cruel consequence of 14 years of failure on the NHS. And I am determined to consign it to the history books. I cannot and will not promise that there won't be patients treated in corridors next year. It will take time to undo the damage that has been done to our NHS. But that is the ambition this government has.
So there's the headline in the Express with a quote from this report. Big report, like watching a horrid film, I can't stop. That's one of the nurses speaking. So just come with me for a moment to just consider this extraordinary situation where we've started to hear, there's a photo of patients in corridors. We all know about this, but we are now starting to have a situation where the idea of being treated in corridors actually has a name. Corridor care, it's called. It's a thing. Not only that, this job advert for a corridor registered nurse. It's an official job title. Nurses being hired to care, and it gives you a whole perspective problem with the NHS. We weren't expecting this to be happening inside the NHS where it becomes an official job. So let's just go back here. We normally talk about the patients, of course we do, because they're at the centre. But this report, the interesting thing about it is it's not so much focusing on the patient. This report is focusing on the staff and the effect on them. So let's just have a look at a few more phrases from the Royal College of Nursing survey of 5,000. Nurse in England, we're caring for almost 40 patients in corridor overflow spaces every day. The risks are getting much higher. The impact it has on staff morale is huge. We're all exhausted. No one started their career in nursing imagining a time like this. Then this nurse in South East England, one patient vomited in the corridor, but then vomited on another patient because they were so close together. I was absolutely heartbroken for both. You've got this, will highlight the nurse in Northern Ireland. I had to change an incontinent, frail patient with dementia on the corridor by a vending machine. Nurse in the East of England, patients miscarrying, returning for treatment, are being bedded in the busy waiting room. There's no privacy, there's no dignity. And this one here in the East of England again, cardiac arrests in the corridor, straddling a patient, doing CPR while everyone watches. It feels so undignified. Patients and family are constantly angry with you and there's nothing you can do. So this is all about the staff and the effect on them. And well, there we are, Paulette. You've been in that situation, I'm sure.
I've been a nurse for many years, Jeremy, and I'm saddened by what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. Corridor care is just unacceptable. We have to do it as nurses because we have a duty to care, but it is not a role that I want to see going on. We've had 14 years of Tory austerity. We've had funding cut to the NHS because we've got waste in funding that's in the NHS. The government has made it absolutely clear through Wes Streeting, the Darcy report that came out recently that at the moment is being consulted on, that they're looking at a 10-year plan. Wes has made it absolutely clear about preventative care. So e.g., there's discussions going on about talking to doctors, GPs and others, where they get financially incentivized to actually stop people from going into hospitals. And I'll bring it up again. I know, but I've got to say again, it didn't just happen overnight. But the big one that I want to mention before you shut me up is about social care. Unless we sort out social care and we can get I think it's about 12,000 people that are in hospitals at the moment that shouldn't be there, we're not going to start seeing improvements.
Well, and of course you've just delayed that, haven't you? Labour have just said, we're going to do a report on social care, and we're not even going to have a result of the report for 3 years. So we don't even know what the policy is going to be on that for 3 years. That's how we all get care in our old age. So that's in the long grass. In the meantime, we've got this terrible situation. I mean, it's incredible they're now advertising for corridor nurses.
It's a specific corridor nurse, you're quite right. And you're also quite right that the social care report will report back in 2028 as to what they plan on doing next with social care. I actually like Wes Streeting. I do. I think that he's one of the more competent front benchers in a sea of those that perhaps aren't that competent. All I can do, though, is base my analysis on whether Labour, your question is, can Labour fix the hospital crisis, on what Labour have done so far. And I have never in my life seen a new government that has come in that has been such utter chaos, that has flailed from one crisis to the next and seems to have no long-term plan for anything.
Can
I'll store up your
anger.
Yeah.
No, I'm not angry.
No, don't argue that you're not angry.
So there is that aspect of competence in other areas that I don't think has been displayed. But look, you're not going to get any arguments from me that the last lot were chaos. I absolutely agree. But the NHS has had increases of funding, perhaps not in real terms, but increases in funding every single year. We've never given the NHS more money. And until we talk about trying to either change the way the NHS is funded or do some of what Wes Streeting has actually started to do, which is, and you notice that they're calling it independent providers, Wes Streeting has actually opened up some appointments to private providers. At the expense of the government.
But it is bed blocking. The issue is that
much more of that needs to be done.
But I mean, in the end, people go into hospital and there aren't any beds. Why aren't there beds? A, we're all living longer. That's not the government's fault. And B, lots of people get ill and they can't safely go home alone and they don't have a care home place. Fundamentally, that's it. Until we get the bed blocking sorted, we're going to have corridor care, aren't we? That's it.
No, I beg to differ. Wes has made it absolutely clear. We have been in the wilderness for 14 years. This service has absolutely been left to wither in the vine. He's coming. This is the first winter that we've been in power, less than 6 months. And what he said is he's putting together a plan from the government going forward so that the money we have received will be used in the right and proper way. I absolutely believe that the report that's being done at the moment in social care, I think it will report before the 3 years.
But we all know what the solution is, right? Is that the Dilnot report came out. I know this is a bit technical, but he had a long thought about it, and he said the way you pay for it is you say everyone has to be ready, if they can, to pay 80 or 83,000, and after that, however rich they are, the government will pay the rest. Now, that was then labelled as a dementia tax, and the whole thing fell apart. But in the end, it's going to be something like that. So at least you know, whoever you are, however much your house is worth, you will never pay more than 83,000. Now, that's the solution. It's going to have to be some element of people paying for themselves.
It's not just bed blocking. Firstly, I think it is ridiculous that it's 2028 that they're talking about social care and the bed blockers, but it is not just that. We give the NHS more money than we've ever given the NHS. We do. You can't keep just throwing money into this bottomless pit without talking about how the care is provided. And I think the solution is to bring in more private care providers, as long as it remains free at the point of use. Now, I don't think that Wes Streeting or anyone in Labour has the kahunas to say this is what needs to be done. Secondly, the GP plan, where you pay £20 to a GP for trying to sort of not have the hospital referral. GPs are the first course of action. The reason that people are in corridors is because people are going to A&E because they cannot get a GP appointment. Yes. And the GP is where we should be pumping so much money, and they have been underfunded, but there isn't much other than this incentive that I've seen about GPs.
But GPs spend, this is the whole of the NHS we're now talking about, but it's 8 minutes per patient on average. How can you diagnose anything?
That's where the corridor care is coming from.
Well, exactly. That's true as well. I don't know what.
But also,
let me just go to a call. Paulette, this is our first caller for you, so this has got a big moment here. Angela is a retired nurse in Cardiff. Hi, Angela.
Hello,
Good morning, Jeremy.
What would you like to say?
I think this crisis is like a jigsaw puzzle. There are so many elements to this, but the one I'd like to concentrate on is the staff. There is no worse feeling for any nurse leaving after a 12-hour shift, knowing that you've done your very best, but you know that it's not the best that could have been done. It's devastating, and it's no wonder that morale is so poor and people are leaving. But I do have one suggestion in relation to the staffing crisis. During COVID, final year medical students were brought back into the NHS to do clinical work, take histories and all sorts of different things. I'm well aware of that. And before I did my training, I was a nursing auxiliary for about 18 months. And believe me, that is real nursing. That's how you learn how to talk to people, how to look for basic problems, their skin, all sorts of things. And I think every student, medical and nursing, should be put into the clinical areas to work for 3 months or so to gain that very basic experience of dealing with patients.
All right.
That would mean...
Okay, thank you very much, Angela. I get that. Find the resources from somewhere. After the break, we're taking more calls on this. More of your calls on whether Labour can fix the hospital crisis. That's after nurses revealed they are treating up to 40 people at a time in corridors. This big report today. They say patients, some of them die in corridors and are then undiscovered for hours. 0207 862 2222. Tony's in Hampshire. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Jeremy.
But bearing in mind that Paulette here is a Labour MP, do you think her party can fix this?
Well, firstly, I think the premise of the question needs to be caveated a little bit in that, I don't think there is a miracle cure that anyone should be particularly held to. However, I think the endeavour from the Labour Party led by on this particular issue led by Wes Streeting, I think that there is a really encouraging will and sincere will. It feels vocational, and I believe that there is an absolute commitment. Are
you a Labour Party member, Tony?
I'm not. No.
No. I mean, you've got a lot of faith in them because there's lots of people have got wills. It doesn't mean they do anything. I've got a great will to go and climb Everest. I'm never going near it. You know what I mean? They need a method here. They need a plan.
I understand that, but I think what is very unhelpful actually is that it's been used as a political football already. Just the intention. Even before we've had the chance for serious action and change, I think it's really problematic that every move from the Labour Party is being, sort of being crushed down and manipulated. I think we need more of a unilateral approach. I think that is the way to step forward.
Okay, Tony, it's brilliant, but I'm going to move on. Thank you. Colleen in Kent, hi.
Hello, good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, panel.
Were you a nurse like Paulette as well?
Yes, I was. I did my training when I was 40.
Oh, okay.
And became a cardiac nurse for 33 years. And I'd like to think that the NHS can be fixed, but I agree with a lot of what the gentleman on the panel has said, and also with the nurse that rang earlier. This is such a big and vast subject, and it really needs, I believe, cross-party. I don't think one particular government, because every time we get a new government, it's we can fix it. But we've got to look at keeping people out of hospital in the first place, concentrate a lot on health education, use of different mediums like pharmacy, and more, as your gentleman said, help to the GPs.
Does that work? Let me ask Paulette, do you think that works, the prevention? Because I don't see any sign of it.
I absolutely agree with you. The prevention is the way forward.
Why are we getting fatter then?
The problem is at the moment we haven't really concentrated on prevention, keeping people out of hospital, and we have to move towards that. We have to improve the morale of our workforce. We have to increase our workforce, because our actual workforce, because they're demoralised, because they feel that they've just had enough. They're leaving. But finally, I absolutely agree with the caller. We have to be cross-party. And Wes has said this all along.
Really?
You can't do this in isolation. And this is why he said we need to do this review in social care, bring all the big political parties together so that we can get an answer that we can go forward in agreement with. I absolutely believe that we can fix the NHS. And finally, before you come in, Christos, I believe that Labour did it before and they can do it again.
But why do they need another, 3.5 years to report on social care? What were they doing in opposition? Why does it take that amount of time? If social care is one of the biggest problems, along with GPs, that we've identified, and those two ends of the spectrum, why 3.5 more years?
So, Christos, where I want to disagree with you, they've said it could take up to 3 years. The point is, if the review can be done in less time than that, because it's been reported to the Prime Minister on a regular basis, as well as Wes, it could be that this report could be ready before that point.
Right.
The point is, we've got to put their feet to the fire to get this done, but I do believe it has to be a joined up.
I thought they were ready for government. I thought they were ready to hit the ground running, not come into government and then wait 2 or 3 years.
The point is, they came into government, they didn't know there was a £22 billion black hole.
Let's not crack that one open, because I'm not sure
That's a whole other argument. Yeah, well, part of it's caused by paying train drivers more. Thank you for your calls so far. We're taking more after the break because we've got so many people queuing to talk about this. More calls on whether Labour can fix the corridor care crisis. I'm just saying more calls because we have got so many people waiting. Berry is in Essex. Hi, Berry.
Hello, good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, panel.
Can Labour do it?
I don't know if Labour can. We reach every time a new government comes into power, they claim they're going to do this. They claim they're going to reduce the waiting list and everything. I was recently at the hospital where my 92-year-old father who's got Alzheimer's was admitted into hospital. He was kept in the corridor next to the A&E entrance and exit doors of the department for over 26 hours on the trolley. When I arrived, I went to go and speak to the sister in the middle of the A&E department, and it was like Beirut in there. Honestly, it was just a sea of people. By the time the consultant came to examine him, I mentioned to him, it's like Beirut. He said, we just don't have the infrastructure. People are bringing their mother-in-laws with them. They're bringing children along with them. But we learned nothing from COVID, especially this season, at the moment, the height of the virus season.
Yeah.
People, it's rife out there, but it should be a policy of now one patient, one person with the patient.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who comes to hospital with norovirus needs their head testing, unless they are elderly and their life's in danger, because that is the most infectious virus known to man. And if you sit in the waiting room, everyone's going to get it. Thank you, Berry. We're back with A&E, aren't we? Maybe that is the problem. Derek's a doctor in Exeter. Hi, Derek.
Yes, hi there. Good morning to you.
Do you think Labour can fix this, or are they just not? It seems odd that they've got this amazing majority and they're not going to use it to bring something in on social care, which they could just have voted through in a day, and they're not going to use it for that.
Well, it's going to be, I can't see any light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. In the 20 years I've been working at the Exeter Hospital, I can tell you it's absolutely got so bad. We have dealing with people in the corridors like we're seeing at the moment. Most of the acute heart issues are mostly inside. We've had through the COVID people coming for emergency and dealing with in the ambulances. I would really like it if one of the ministers came down here. It's getting so bad, Jeremy. I honestly, I'm thinking myself of giving up this profession in the 20 years I've been here. I can tell you 20 years ago, people listened to us and it wasn't so stressful at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Are you an
please
A&E doctor, Derek, or where are you working in the hospital?
Yeah, the RD&E, yeah, it's in the Wanford one in Exeter. I deal with all sorts at the moment. It's not just 2 or 3 jobs. I'm a specialist, basically, but at the moment, I can tell you, even speaking to Suella Braverman a couple of weeks ago, because I do speak through Ben Bradshaw, she said, I'm not a minister, no, it's not my job no more. I can't do anything about it. I'm a constituency in Hampshire. I don't deal with that part, or she's a constituency is in Hampshire. Nobody listens to us, Jeremy. What more can we do?
Yeah. If someone said to you, right, that the budget for Exeter Hospital is 10 million a year, we'll make it 12 million, would you say, oh, that's fine, we've sorted it?
No. No, I wouldn't. Like I say, it's going to take a lot longer than that, and it's going to. We're basically struggling up a hill, and I can't see any light at the moment. We are desperately. It's the communication. We're not getting. Even Wes Streeting, I think, is a great guy, but I don't see. It's not. He needs to come here and see what's going off. It's unbelievable. It's so bad.
Oh, Derek, I hear your stress, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for calling. Terry in Kent, what do you think? Can Labour do it, Terry?
Well, I think I know what the answer is. The problem at the hospitals at the moment is lack of beds, because you've got people in there who don't need to be there. So back in COVID, we had the Nightingale wards. So why don't you reopen them up? People who don't need to be in hospital, like people who should be in social care or stuff like that, put them in there. All you need is a few nurses to run them, and that would free up like 20, 30 beds in all the hospitals.
Yeah, they had that. What about that, Paulette? To reopen the Nightingale Hospital, which are big kind of warehouses, really.
As I'm going to do this as a preface, I am not in government. So I'm part of the government party, but I'm not in government. I don't agree with that. Reason being, during COVID, I was on the front line in local authorities and we opened up one of these Nightingale hospitals. We never filled a bed. The reason was till you sort out the workforce, if you haven't got enough workforce to actually look after who we've got in hospitals, in care homes and other places at the moment. If you open these big units, where are you going to find the staff from?
That's it, Terry. It's not, when we say that there are no beds, what we mean is there are no nurses.
But the thing is, surely the nurses don't all have to be qualified, because they're only looking after personally like the social care ones do.
Well, I wonder about that. I wonder whether it's time to bring in, like they've done with police constables, and you bring in the equivalent of community support officers in health. So you have volunteers, good people, a lot of them may be retired,
but that was
older
what we were
women.
supposed to get during COVID. The Nightingales were one massive, great big PR virtue signal for Matt Hancock during COVID. I took the photos in front of it, and then there were no staff to run it. And all these retired and students that were supposed to be going in and running it never materialised. It was a huge waste.
But also it turned out if you were in hospital because of COVID, it was because you needed to be in intensive care on a ventilator, which is a very, very intense thing. Or you were home. There wasn't really a secondary thing.
No, but the people who didn't need that full-time COVID care, that were less ill, could have gone into those Nightingales had they been staffed properly.